Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Two Tamers Talks. It's a special one, guys. If you haven't noticed, there hasn't been a lot of deck profiles or other content in the past few weeks, and that's because the Bandai Card Game Festival National Tournament was this past weekend for us. And luckily enough, we've had 3 of our contributors and local players placed within the top 64 of that tournament. And so, we have an amazing episode where all 3 of them are here, and we're going to interview them and talk to them about how that tournament went. But before we get to those interviews, we do have a couple of housekeeping issues we have to get through the way first. The first is that if you're excited about these interviews and to hear how the national tournament went, please like and subscribe so you can see all of the amazing content we have coming up in the future. The second is please follow us on Instagram. There were a lot of posts from the national tournament, and there's going to be a lot moving forward. Jesse's putting a link right here as we speak, so please follow us on Instagram. And finally, I want to shout out a special fan that we met at the tournament. That Jace kid gave us one of his playmats that he makes. He has a shop on eBay or Etsy or something like that. We'll have a link in the description. Please reach out to him and buy stuff from him. And thank you so much for this amazing mat featuring the best dog in EX6 or EX5. So with that out of the way, we're going to jump into our first interview. All right, we're starting off strong. Jacob, welcome.
Hello.
Yeah, you all know Jacob from Anubismon most recently, and you also know him from our second most viewed video, which I don't know if it'll ever be toppled, the BL's advanced deck opening. But Jacob, welcome. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. For those of you who saw me this weekend, I still sound terrible, but we had a blast this weekend, and I'm very excited to be here and talking about it.
Right on. So we're just going to start off simply. What did you play?
I played Red Hybrids, which was a bit of a crazy pick for me. Mm-hmm. I was pretty set on Anubismon for the longest time. I really like Anubismon. Anubismon's a bit of like a comfort pick for me. And I didn't want to play Anubis because I didn't want to play mirror matches. So like going into this event, I was like, I don't want to play Anubis, but like I want to play something competitive. And Anubismon was what I was going to play up until the very last week before the event, or Wednesday. For those of you who don't know, we live in the Pacific Northwest. So me and a small group of guys drove down. It is a quick 15-hour drive.
Something light.
The GPS is just get on I-5, don't get off I-5, and you're there.
And now you're in LA.
So we left Thursday night, and our last locals was Wednesday night. So the night before, I had to settle on a deck to bring for the event. I was going to play Anubismon, and all of the guys were like, Jacob, don't bring Anubismon. Pick something else. And I leaned over to a buddy of mine, Blue Wind, shout out Blue Wind. And I was like, hey, do you have your Red Hybrids list on you? And he was like, yeah, but it hasn't been updated for like two or 3 sets. And I was like, cool. So I grabbed his list. I just took out all the bad cards, like the Blitz Emperor Greymon and the 4-cost hybrid option. Took those out.
Flame Star.
Put in the good stuff. Put in the Gravity Crushes. Put in the Crimson Blazes. Put in all of the cards that were gonna be useful for the event. And I was like, cool, I'm gonna play this. And I went 3-1 that night, only losing to one of the other players who was on this podcast later today. And I was like, you know what? I'll bring this. Sure, why not? And it ended up being the right pick.
Yeah, well, we'll get into your sort of results in a second, but I do want to talk about Anubismon a little bit. And so what was the deciding factor to push you away from Anubismon?
So the big difference between Anubismon and Red Hybrids, besides there's a lot of differences, but they're both red aggressive decks. But for me, Anubismon is a combo deck that wants to present an OTK really early. And changing to Red Hybrids was 2 big differences. I lowered my ceiling quite a bit. Red Hybrids does not really have an OTK.
No.
Anubismon does. Anubismon is one of the fastest OTKs that it can present. But it's not super consistent. So changing red hybrids meant that while I did lower my ceiling, and I didn't have as much of that like explosive and like OTK potential, I raised my floor exponentially. I played a deck that was like, 1,000 times more consistent. All of your rookies are, care about the deck and like want to do like stuff considering red hybrids. All of your fours are the same like typo. Like the red hybrids deck is just a lot more consistent. And I didn't have a 2-round bye going into this event. So I wanted to play something that I could consistently play for 10 rounds and not have those hands where you brick and it's just like 3 Jesmons and 2 Savior Huckmons. And you're like, well, this isn't looking good for us.
Yeah, sure.
Red Hybrids just was a lot more of a consistent deck. It still had that good matchup in Anubismon that I was after, albeit a little better. And then against other decks, like with Jesmon, I found that I couldn't quite beat Melga. Unless I turned 2 Melga. They were faster. I can't beat over their stack because of their protection. So
it's all battle protection.
But with red hybrids, you can beat Melga. Emperor Greymon is a phenomenal out to a Digimon that has protection from everything but deletion effects.
Yeah. And in our playtesting, I was also thinking about playing red hybrids, and in the playtesting versus Melga, one of their winning lines was go into Blitz Omni, not for game, but just to pass the turn, because they'd have to double Emperor to delete that stack. It's pretty interesting.
That'd be really frustrating.
Yes. Go ahead.
So yeah, I wanted a deck that was more consistent, and red hybrids was just a more consistent pick over Jesmon. Yeah. Although I still would have loved to play Jesmon.
Well, I know you would have, and I do want to shout out someone who I'm sure is not listening. There was one player going into round 7 was 6-0 playing Jesmon GX Turbo. For those of you who haven't seen it, the strategy of the deck basically forgoes all of the Jesmon stuff that you presume. That is swinging with the starter deck Jesmon for a bunch of checks and unsuspending and swinging again. That was sort of Nito's strategy. This list centers around 4 Jesmon GX with the Sakudamon level 7 egg if you're a level 7 gain of memory when attacking, and BT13 Craniumon. And he was having a ton of success eating the Anubis players until he ran into Blue Flare 2 rounds in a row in the top tables. And so he ended up not making it to top cut. But I did want to shout out that list because it's a very clever way of, he said, whatever event I go to, I'm playing Jesmon, so I just need to make it work. And so that was his way of making it work, was playing a GX list with a Digimon that can't be deleted by effects.
Still a very cool list.
Yeah, a very cool list. But he ended up going with red hybrids. I think it's a smart meta call. I think it's one of the clearly one of the strongest decks in that format. So let's talk about the rounds.
Yeah.
Do you just want to walk us through them one by one?
Yeah. So day 1, I went X and 2. And I had some very silly
round
losses.
1. I'm very excited to talk about round 1.
So round 1, and again, I didn't have a 2-round bye, so I knew going into this I was just going to be playing 10 straight. Round 1, we played against Yellow Vaccine, and we 2-0'd it.
It was round 2 that I'm excited. Never mind. Excuse me.
Venusmon is a very annoying card, but when they Venus, you just kind of like play a Tamer and pass, and like
pretty good.
that matchup was pretty much like just like if they did like big plays like Venusmon or Ruin Mode, it was kind of just like play a Tamer or like Crimson Blaze and pass and just like wait until we weren't under Ruin Mode or Venusmon effect and then raise and swing for game. So we 2-0'd that one. I have a lot of outs to that deck, right? Turning off options is really good.
Yeah.
Being able to like not have dead turns against Venusmons and Ruin Modes is really good too, because like playing out Tamers is just like we want to do that. Round 2, played against a Bancho Leomon who 2-0'd me straight out the gate. I was so frustrated. Looking back on it now, that deck clearly has a really good...
It's a specific red hybrid counter.
Really good red hybrid matchup. It was a deck we did not play test at all. Not a single time in the 2 months we play tested were we like, oh, should I build Bancho Leomon and play test?
It's not even heavy Leo. It's Bancho Leo.
Oh,
For those of you who don't know, Bancho Leo says when a Digimon when it attacks or becomes suspended.
It's all turns once per turn when a Digimon becomes suspended.
Yeah, activate negative 4K and security attack -1. So.
And what I was frustrated with was I couldn't like swing with a rookie and have them nuke the rookie and then I could hybrid because they just get to wait and choose when they activate it.
Yes.
So I was like, wow, that's
tough.
I can't hybrid for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And then all of the Leomon stuff
Fortitude.
plays out when it's deleted and like digivolves and DP minuses my stack. So it was a very frustrating loss. The second hour into the event,
yes.
I was very much like, wow, I really hope I don't see any more silly matchups like this. But I talked to the dude. His name was Ernesto. I talked to him at the end of the event.
Shout out Ernesto.
I said, hey, how did you do? And he went, I went X and 4, but I played 5 red hybrids and I 2-0'd every single one. And I was like, you know what? That'll do it. Maybe
what a dog.
If you bring the deck to counter a specific deck and you only see that deck, you're going to do awesome.
Aces.
Round 3, we played Anubis. Crazy thing for me with this event was I didn't see the same deck more than twice. Most of every single one
I think a lot of people had that experience.
Was against like really unique decks. And that's not to be surprising. In our top 64, we had 18 unique decks.
Yeah.
That is
more than I would have guessed.
Crazy. We
More
expected like guessed. 4 or 5.
Well, how many were at the last nationals? It was less than that for sure. I think it was 9. It was 9.
It was like 3 or 4, I feel like. It was Black War Gray and
the rest. Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, round 3 was Anubismon. I got a nice 2-0 there. Just my deck does good against Anubismon. Anubis, I pop the Anubis or I pop the Merva, swing for game. Round 4 we played against Armor Rush, which is I played against the gentleman who was playing Arm Rush. I played against him at the Pasadena Regionals when I was playing Ruby.
Yeah.
And that day too was another like he was like, oh, I don't know what this deck is at all. But he's a very cool sport. I do not remember his name, but he starts every game. He like puts his hands up and he's like, will you open the digital gate with me? Or something along those
very
lines.
nice. A true fan.
He loves the game.
Only a true fan would play Armor Rush at Nationals and open the digital gates.
But he was having a blast, but we 2-0'd it. Round 5, we played against Red Hybrids. I just drew it better. The mirror is really interesting. It's kind of just who has it and who doesn't. If you are a turn too slow, you can just lose. If you give them a warp to Kuria, you can lose. Like there's a lot of like really like specific stuff with the mirror match along the lines of like sometimes you just have it and they don't, and sometimes they have it and you don't. But we 2-0'd Red Hybrids. Going into round 6, I played against Bloomlord.
Wow.
Another 2-0 there. Obviously, 3 Crimson Blaze is pretty good.
Setting the plants on fire.
That wants to play out wide. I had the same thing I have every time I play against Bloomlord. I have read Hydramon probably 1,000,000 times, and every time my opponent digivolves in a Hydramon.
Jesse,
no matter what
can
happens,
you just close on me, Jesse?
Every time someone plays Hydramon, I have to go, okay, I know most of what this card does. Can I read it again though? Like bot decks, like gains memory on my turn. But he didn't see Bloomlord for both games. He just saw Hydramons.
Not seeing your 4-ups hurts.
Pretty rough. Going into round
2-0 over Bloom.
Going into round 7 is where my second loss comes from the event, and it was against Dark Nightmon.
Oh man!
Expecting a Dark Nightmon at X and 1 tables round 7 was not my idea at all.
Sure.
Dark Nightmon is another one of those. They are a big blocker deck. They float really well when you delete them, and Dark Nightmon X pops Tamers.
Yes,
and he doesn't have to just pop Nene. And also
you can pop the Nene or
my Takuya,
or your Takuya,
which is rough.
Yeah.
Also, them having digivolve is annoying because I want to set up my on deletion effects and they just digivolve and pop.
Yeah, you
instead.
want BT12 Aguni with the BT7 Flamemon, right?
Yeah, and then he was just like digivolve pop, and I was like, never mind.
Bet.
And then Nene makes everything in that deck a blocker.
Yeah, everything that's a Twilight
really
or something like that.
Yeah, and I'm not playing any of. I'm not playing any of the BT 7 Flamon. I think is the inherited piercing. I'm not playing any of that one.
Okay, yeah.
So so a lot of times I'm just like getting jump blocked by Modimon.
Yeah,
I'm like,
right,
cool.
for sure.
That's awesome.
That's tough.
But yeah, I lost 1-2. I did get game 1 because he didn't see Nene, but game 2 and 3 hard mulligan for Nene, and then
That'll do
just
it.
built up Dark Naemon stacks, and it was very back and forth. It was just like a very like one of those like frustrating matchups of like I can't quite get through here.
Yeah.
So at that point, we're X and 2. We're towing the line of what can day 2 and what can't. So it was very much okay, I have to win.
It was pretty clear that very few X3s were going to make it in, if any at all. I think the end count was only X2 and 1s made it to day 3.
Yeah.
Or day 2.
So it was very much like, okay,
let's win.
At the end of round 7, we're X and 2. I just need to lock in and secure my last 3 games. Round 8 was against Wargreymon. It 2-0'd. I don't know why I was so nervous in the games. Like my hands was shaking. But I think I was getting through that whole like, oh, I need to win my next games.
Yes.
Wargreymon obviously is a huge blocker and can like present a lot of problems. But I just played super aggressive games 1 and 2 and just overrun him. So 2-0 Wargreymon.
Very nice.
Game 9 was against Anubismon. It was my first repeat. And it was the only repeat, actually. Like I said, I didn't play the same deck more than twice. And most of every event was in a unique deck. So we played Anubismon round 8. That was round 9. That was a barn burner. We went to game 3. It was very back and forth. But game 3, he didn't see Anubis. Not seeing your 4 Evs hurts. So not seeing Anubis meant he was hard playing Mervamons and spitting out bodies and then just playing out like, and then I wasn't seeing Emperor Greymon, so he was playing out Mervamon and then just playing out like ignites and stuff to be able to block and like hope to get to Anubismon.
Yeah,
but he didn't see Anubismon.
Go figure.
Sometimes that's what happens.
Yeah.
And then my round 10 was against Melga, piloted by Zero. Shout out Zero. And he bricked. One of the worst brickings I've ever seen. Game 1, not so much. Game 1, we were like, I played super aggressive, and then he was able to go into Melga and like pass the turn, like swung into Melga to choke me to 1, and did 1 check, and it was Warp Takura, and then I was like,
Takuya.
Is it Takuya?
Yeah.
So like the one check he did was Warp Takuya, and I was like, Emperor Greymon.
Yeah, for
pop
sure.
the stack, and he was like, "Yep, that'll
do
that'll
it.
do it." So then game 2, he was hard playing level 4s and hard played a 5 to put me to like 8.
Yeah,
And I was
can't
like,
do that and win.
And then I just was like, Emperor Greymon, pop the 5 so we can't ace. And then I just had a really unfortunate hands, but in a 10-round event, that happens sometimes.
That's right.
But he was very cool about it. I made sure to be like, hey, I know losing laugh stables due to like poor variance, it like hurts. And he was like, it happens.
That's the game.
He's like,
That's the
I've
game.
been playing really well for most of these events. You're gonna break sometimes. So that was day 1. We went X and 2.
Woo.
Like 48th was I think was my final standing going into day 2.
Oh yeah.
Day 2.
Yeah, let's talk about day 2 because basically what happened is we all went home. Everyone's still jittery and shaky, but feeling good. And what did you see at top table round 64?
I knew going into day 2, there was 2 Bancho Leomons in top 64. So I was like, I don't want to see those guys. And I knew there was 2 Machine Dramons in top 64 going into day 2. And I was like, you know what? This is really easy. Just don't see those 4 people.
Because there was 30 Anubismon players.
I got to see one Anubismon player. I can win that one for sure. So
for those of you who don't know how the prizing works, the difference between top 128 and top 64 is no diff. It was the same amount of prizing cards. the difference between 64 and 32 was
Like,
quite sizable.
Double the prize.
Was quite sizable. So that first round, if not for pride, for the cards,
Just for wanting more stuff.
was the big one.
So my opponent was ranked higher, so we got to pick who goes first. That's how they did it this year, was a higher ranking player picked who goes first. He was like, you go first. And I was like, sweet. I love going first.
Oh,
right?
you do? Okay,
Red
good.
Hybrids really wants to go
Yeah, for
first.
sure.
So I like mulligan, draw my second hand. I'm like, oh, we're on it. BT12 Flamon, BT12 Agunimon. We're set.
Let's
we
run
passed
it.
We passed it too. I'm feeling so good. I've got a great hand. I'm looking at him, and he hatches Dorimon. And I'm already defeated.
You're like, because there's no Alphamon players in top 64.
Dreams crushed. No one brought Oryukin. I know what this means. And I'm like, and then he Digivolves Armadillomon, and I was like, oh, maybe not. Maybe we brought some.
We forgot about the Armadillomon Armor Rush player that
maybe we
made
brought
top
some
64.
silliness. The top 64, and then he defense training, and it was BT11 machine and Analog Man, and he grabbed the Analog Man and played it immediately, and I was like, yep, that'll do it.
All right, here we go.
I'm not one to quit early though.
Of course.
Obviously, machine is a very unwinnable match for us. But I was like, maybe he just doesn't see machine. Maybe we just power through this.
Yeah.
So I was like I just played aggressive game one, and I was like, it's okay. We'll be fine. And then he, sure enough, found machine after playing another Analog Man. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I can't win through machine. His list was very interesting. He was playing the Ragnalordmon.
Yeah. If for those of you who don't know, if you are in the Pro Play Games Discord, they have links to all the deck lists, and it's in a spreadsheet. And we don't have a lot of time to talk about them, but I did want to mention this list specifically as a Machine Dramon enthusiast. 4 of the movie promo Armadillomon, which is inheritable end of turn Jogress, 4 boost, 4 training. So basically the strategy was to get into double Machine Dramon ASAP, and then if not win the game with Ragna, wipe their board.
Yeah, so he Ragnarlord me both games. So if I'm gonna lose a Machine Dramon, having it be that I was at 3 security and then Ragnarlord stripped it all and swung for game, that's cool. At least I can lose
what are you
something
gonna
cool
do?
like that. But yeah, day 2, our dreams were hurriedly stopped by a Machine Dramon player, and sometimes that happens, right?
That's right.
There's 4 of them. I did not see
But
any
top
of them.
64, what an amazing performance. How are your overall impressions of the event with the benefit of hindsight?
The event was awesome. Shout out to Robo Sushi and all of the staff and judges and crew that made this possible.
They had to deal with a lot of crap this weekend.
Whole lot of crap. The Bandai Card Fest was awesome. All the events were super cool. While the scavenger hunt was a pain in the butt, just because of like time management and like spectators got to do it too. It was cool. I got to play test the Union Arena game. That was interesting. Got to like go around to a lot of the booths. The presentations they had for Digimon and for One Piece and for like all the other card games were really cool. Overall, the event was amazing. I like great convention, tons of awesome people. I had a lot of fun with this one.
And we know you ended up switching off the Jessamon to the Red Hybrids. If you could make one deck selection choice or card choice change, would you? And what would it be?
I played Solarmons. I played 2 Solarmons in my list.
The play cost reduction.
Yes, simply because of the fact there's 3 red floodgate cards you can play, and I played Solarmons simply because of the fact of like that our buddy Jeff, Two Tamers Talk, had 2 event pack ones. So I was like, oh cool. I was blinging out the deck. I was borrowing a ton of stuff from him. I was like, you know what? These are pretty.
Yeah.
I was playing them. I should have played Gatsumon, which is
The effect floodgate.
Can't play Digimon by effect. I think Gatsumon would have been astoundingly better in this event, especially into stuff like Dark Knightmon or Machine Dramon.
Sure.
But also, hindsight 2020, I wasn't expecting to play those guys.
And the fortitude as well.
But yeah, I probably would have played Gatsumon. I think Gatsumon technically is better. I wasn't playing into a lot of like Death X's. And I can pop
Some Anubismons were playing it.
and I can pop Death X.
Yeah.
But yeah, I probably would play Gatsumon over Solarmon. In like the Red Hybrids Discord, I had like posted my lists and was like explaining stuff, like how the event went, and that was like one of the big questions. Everyone was like, "Hey, you're playing Solarmon over Gatsumon. Why?" And I had the prettier versions.
Yeah,
and
pack 5.
And everyone was like,
or 4, I think.
Everyone was like, "That makes sense. We hear you."
Well, very well, Jacob. Again, huge shout outs to you. An amazing performance. But because it is a Two Tamers Talk, we got to know, what is your card of the week?
I have 2 cards of the week. I feel like all of us are gonna have 2 cards of the week, but
Cheaters.
It's very silly. The first one is Gravity Crush. I didn't want this to be my only one, since Gravity Crush I feel like has been on the pod before.
It has.
But yeah, Gravity Crush is still an insane card. 0 mana gain 2 is still crazy, and it's one of the cards that helps makes Red Hybrid as good as it is.
Yep.
Is the
I
fact
agree.
that you can just like win out of nowhere, or like what Gravity Crush is.
They only have 1 memory and the Warp Takuya. They can't keep the turn going into Emperor. They can't hybrid and keep the turn. They can't go up the line.
Gravity Crush.
And now he's at
Greymon.
5. Okay, good.
Yeah, Gravity Crush is still an insane card. I was leery on it at first. I think I am finally on the bandwagon. Ban Gravity Crush. Ban Blinding Ray. These cards, or at least restrict them. These cards are very, very good. They prohibit deck building to the point of like any red deck I play, I'm always like, I gotta fit in 2
gotta have at
Gravity
least
Crush
2.
because this card is really, really good. And then my second card of the week is BT12 Agunimon. Again, I didn't do a ton of playtesting with red hybrids. I had playtested the deck before, but I will say BT12 Agunimon was one of the cards that made the deck what it was. On deletion, play a Flamon. Inherited on deletion, play Takuya. Really, really strong.
Yep.
Like your best turns were BT12, whichever Flamon has the on deletion effect. But
Yeah.
Flamon, Agunimon, and
You're
then,
set up for the rest of the game.
and then you're like swing with a Flamon in hand. If it dies, I can play Flamon, play Takuya. If it doesn't die, cool. Go
Gotta
into
deal with
Burning
it.
Gray, pass turn,
Double
put him to
Takuya.
1, get double Takuya. Like and like against like Anubis boards too, I could leave it out there and they have to pop it.
Yeah, the Anubis effect is mandatory.
So like I can guarantee that I get my Warp Takuya that I have in hand that I don't want to play, or my like Memory Takuya. That was a lot of time what it was if I had a Warp Takuya in play, leaving the Aguni meant I could get my Memory Tamer Takuya out of my hand. And yeah, the BT12 Agunimon, playing your Tamers for free and like being able to set up like bait turns of like, oh, you have to kill this because it's threatening lethal next turn, but also killing it will also present lethal because of getting Tamers.
That's right. Well, I'm actually going to cheat. I'm going to be interviewing all these guys, so I get to have a card of the week for all of you. And I wanted to shout out BT14 Koromon. A lot of the lists were opting for the Tokomon, the BT11, I believe, which is on deletion if a red tamer draw 1. And the reason that is bad is a lot of the times if you're choked to 2 with a Flamemon in the raising, you promote the Flamemon. You don't want to swing because you want to play out Takuya to pass. The Koromon gives you a little bit of more aggression, so you can swing and then play the Takuya to pass a little bit stronger. That Koromon goes in a lot of red decks, not just the Greymon stuff, and it's a card I've liked in a bunch of different decks.
Yeah.
So I wanted to shout that one out. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned. We're going to move to our next interview. Any final thoughts?
It was a great event. We'll be back next year.
That's right. All right, we're going to cut right now, and then we'll move to the next interview. Welcome back to our second contestant on Two Tamers Talk. Justin, welcome.
Yeah, how's it going? I feel, I was really happy because, you guys can see the list later. I don't know if Jesse's going to post them all, or you could just look it up. But Basil was my training partner for this entire event, and I'm really, really glad because our goal for the event is kind of a collective, right?
We're the same person.
We're the same person, yeah. We agreed on a deck, card for card, and we played it. And our goal was one of us has to day 2 it, basically. So after the event, I'm still like kind of letting it sink in, I guess, because it's like we put a lot of time, a lot of practice into it. Yeah, maybe you can talk about that too.
So we're in the preparation for the event. Justin and I played probably 500 Anubis mirrors.
Way too much.
That was what we were expecting the most of, and we were proven correct.
Yeah.
And we had basically our strategy was, how can we be as good into Anubis without being bad into Melga and red hybrids? That was our whole deck building philosophy, and it ended up working out really well.
Yeah. I mean, except, well, we can talk about it when we get into rounds. Do you want to do that right now?
Yeah, no. But before we do, let's talk about it. We played Anubismon.
We played Anubismon.
Tell us why.
Well, so there's a little bit of inspiration from my brother. Basil mentions him a couple of times, so I'll mention him now. But he used to be a professional card game player for Echo Fox. So he was paid to play card games.
Nobody watching knows what Echo Fox is.
Yeah.
Echo Fox was an esports team promoted by Rick Fox, former Lakers basketball player, a now defunct organization.
Yeah.
But in its heyday, quite the competitive organization.
Yeah, they had teams for basically every tier 1 game that you can think of, League, you know, CSGO.
Yeah, everything.
Basically, if there was an esports and it was
Echo Fox
mainstream, Echo Fox was in it. But he played for a smaller card game called Shadowverse. There's a physical card game now.
The fans do know Shadowverse.
Yeah,
for sure. He was
knowing Shadowverse and then not knowing Echo Fox is very.
He was a very good Shadowverse player in
2018, 19, whatever. We'll look it up later. But the biggest piece of advice I've ever gotten from him for this card game in particular is, if you're going to a big tournament, and like genuine big tournament, you should not play off meta. And the most obvious meta deck in my mind going into the event was Melga. I think Red Hybrids was good. I think BL Star was good. And, you know, elephant in the room was Anubis. Jacob was talking about it earlier. He played 2 Anubis players, and there was 30 of them in top 64. So it was pretty obvious the best contender for Nats. And lo and behold, the deck that won Nats was Anubis. And he says that you should play the best deck because you have to be as consistent as you possibly can. And there's a reason why Anubis was the best deck. It was very consistent. It had one of the strongest late game, mid game boards that you can ever have. It had a lot of counters. It was very flexible. It's very, very difficult to brick on the deck.
Yes.
It played 12 rookies, which is a lot of people.
For you, that's Christmas.
That's Christmas, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people tend to opt for a lower rookie count. But in a long tournament in my head, I was under the thought process of, even if I have less of a ceiling, like my win condition is less consistent or whatever, or there's less tech cards that I can play because I'm playing more rookies, at the very least I can play the game.
I want to get there, yep.
I'm going to get there. And then even more is, I'm confident in myself as a player and a deck builder. At the very least, if I can get to play the game, maybe I've got a shot. I've got a shot, right? And I can eke out that small 1 to 2% win rate just by being a better player on the same day.
That's right.
So it played 12 rookies. It played 4 training, 4 boosts. And that's as good as you can get in terms of consistency, because I was going into this tournament, I've played in long regionals, 8 rounds, 9 rounds. Nats was most likely going to be 10 to 12. So if I'm playing in that tournament and I open my hand and I don't see a rookie, it sucks. It would really, really suck. And that was kind of my philosophy in that regard. On top of the deck was allowed to play some of the most jarring cards that when you read it for the first time, you're like, wow, this is legal. It plays 2 ruin modes, and I don't think I've said this on the channel yet, but ban that card. It's very unfun.
Ruin mode to 0.
That card is very unfun to play against.
Let us know in the comments if you want Basil and Justin's ban list. That could be a video.
Yeah, there would be a lot of cards on that.
There'd be a lot of cards at 1.
If the card is not fun to play against, it'd probably be 1. But it played 2 ruin modes.
Are listed, yeah.
Are listed. Some opted for 1 ruin mode, 1 Death X. But the idea of ruin mode is, if you are playing a rogue deck, and this is another reason why it's very appealing, is Anubis crushes rogue decks that aren't specifically designed to beat Anubis. With it allowing to play Ruin mode, there's certain strategies can't play through it. A lot of aggressive decks get turned off. They suddenly lose their lethal turn, and it gives you so much time to eventually get to a board state where they can't play the game. And that was kind of the philosophy in the mirror as well, on top of like most rogue decks.
Are the strategy with the Anubis deck that we had crafted was it was a race to an unbeatable board. And most often this consisted of Retail Blocker, Psychmon, Gazimon.
Yeah.
And it's like, good luck.
Maybe they're also under Ruin mode.
Yeah.
There was a lot of times in the tournament where not only did I put my opponents under Ruin mode, I put them under 2 or 3 instances of it. So they were minus 10K, minus 15K. Can't raise their rookie.
The deck generated memory like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah. And because of that, it's like, okay, you look at the deck, you look at its win condition, and here's the greatest thing about the deck. The deck didn't lose to high variance insecurity. This is one of the few decks where you weren't always supposed to swing. A lot of times during the tournament, I ended on an Anubis with a Merva, 2 bodies, and I'm just not swinging. And then next turn, they'll pass it to me at 1 or 2, swing my Psychmon so it dies, or evolve on top of it to use Anubis skill again. You gain 5 memory, and that was your only check for the turn, and then you pass it with Ruin mode. Can't play the game.
Good luck.
Good luck. And that was how I played most of the tournament. And I mean, it was the best deck in the format for a reason. It doesn't lose to a lot of rogue decks in my mind, because later on you'll see that that wasn't the case.
Now, Justin, I know your rationale, and I know the reason for picking the Anubis. Was there anything else that was a high contender?
Yeah, I tested a lot of decks, and when I say a lot of decks, I've played more games on the sim than you guys can imagine. I did so many
Shout-outs to
tests.
Project Drazel.
Yeah, Project Drazel, saving my hands from shuffling the actual physical
for
deck.
sure.
But I don't even think there was another contention.
It was very clear to us that Anubis was the best, if not the best deck, if not just the best deck in the format, maybe the best deck in Digimon's history.
Yeah, it's I can't emphasize, like, if you've never played against it or played as it, you start to realize, like, wow, I've never seen a deck this memory efficient. I've never seen a deck draw this much. I've never seen a deck have this many tech options, and I've never seen such an astounding matchup spread.
Your worst matchup was Red Hybrids, and it was a 50-50.
Yeah. And some might say it was a 45-55. Well, that was in testing. I couldn't think of another deck just based off of, like, a lot of people kind of base their choices off of Japan's meta. And it's like, okay, look at Japan's meta, a lot of Anubis. Okay. So I expected the same.
We'll get into the more specific counters a little bit later on.
Yeah, and the final nail in the coffin for me saying I'm going to run Anubis is I played in Cam Sao's pre-Nats warm-up.
Yes, shout out to Cam Sao.
Yeah, super cool guy, met him in person.
We met him at the tournament.
And I placed 3rd, and the only matchup I lost in that tournament was to V-Passion. I think his real name is Hien. Shout outs to Hien. He's really good on Hunters, of all things. And I thought that was matchup inexperience. I missed my rookie game 1, and game 2 it was a grind, but I didn't see any of my ruin modes. And I was like, okay, if that my only losing matchup was to variance, surely I have to take the stack. And so we did. We refined it for 2 months, I think.
We went through 8 iterations. We took version 8 of Anubis to nationals.
Version 8. And we ended up
airtight list.
Yeah, airtight
with
list.
one exception, which we'll get to in a bit.
Yeah.
So tell us about the matches. You had a 2-round bye because you got 3rd at a regional with the Black or Gray OTK deck.
Yeah. So thank God, because first of all, 2-round buys, it's the best you can get. It's the best for tiebreakers.
For those of you who are not tournament savvy, a 2-round bye is not equated in tiebreakers as you not playing 2 rounds. It's as you winning 2 rounds versus a perfect opponent.
Meaning they went. There was a ghost that went 10-0.
Yes.
So I had my 2-round bye, so I didn't have to play nearly as much matchups as Jacob did. My first matchup, I lost. So we started off the tournament really, really rough. And one of the decks I was testing at the very last minute, there's this Anubis version where it played Biting Crush. And for those who don't know, Biting Crush says pitch a card, delete a level 6
it's
or
an
lower.
8-cost option.
8-cost option, delete a level 6 or lower. If the card you pitched has Great Demon Lords in its text, set it to your battlefield. And delay, when something gets played by an effect on your opponent's board, you can play a Leviamon on yours. And I didn't think much of it. I play tested it it was the last week of my testing, and I played a version with Biting Crush in it. and the games were brutal. It was 50-50 against an opponent that I don't think played the deck as much as I did, or the Anubis mirror in particular, but it suddenly changed the dynamic, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. And I was thinking prior to the tournament, okay, if they're playing this, as long as I get deep enough, hopefully the deck list will be inconsistent where it'll lose to other matchups.
We knew about the Biting Crush Leviamon strategy specifically in Anubis, and our idea was it's horrible versus Melga. And it's also horrible versus red hybrids.
Yeah.
So our idea was if we make it to round 4, 5, 6, 7, these later rounds, these decks will have lost to Melga and red hybrid by then.
Yeah.
Boy, howdy, were we wrong.
So the first horror story of it is my very first round. I'm playing against an Anubis. He flips Sunomon, and internally I'm very happy.
we wanted 10 rounds of the mirror. That's what we wanted.
The running joke was one time.
One time.
Give it to us one time. I just want the mirror all day.
Yeah.
And I got the mirror, but it was a very different variant. He was playing. I obviously don't know his list, and maybe if he wants to chime in.
If you're watching, comment.
Yeah. But he was playing a list with a lot of Biting Crushes and a lot of levies. I would be as bold to say he was playing at least 3 Biting Crush, at least 3 levies, and at one point he had 2 Biting Crushes on the board, and I couldn't Anubis while he could.
Yeah.
And that was a brutal 2-0 loss. And we're starting off the tournament real strong. But luckily enough, we had the 2-round bye, so it wasn't as detrimental of a loss if I were to just lose round 1 and I didn't. But kept my head high. We said, all right.
Because effectively at this point, you're 2-1.
2-1. And that's okay.
That's fine.
My next round was against Lugermon. Kind of a matchup that I was also scared of too. It's a weird coin flip where if they flip heads twice, they're in a really good spot.
Yeah.
If their opening line is Lugermon into Analog Boy, and they trash an AG and they add Lugermon to hand, it is rough.
You all know Jacob from his not Jacob Neat, but Jacob, the other Jacob from his purple deck profiles.
The Night Raid Rush.
That's from Night Raid Rush and so on. His joke is Lugarmon is flip 2 coins. If they're both heads, win the game. If one of them is heads, playable.
If none of them are heads, this deck sucks.
Yeah.
So we play against Lugermon. We win 2-0. The variance was not on his side. The very first thing that he does, though, is he flips the Balmon. He does Lugermon and then Analog Boy. But he's left with a very, very rough choice. And eventually
you get it from there.
We get it from there. The trickiest part about that matchup is the timing of his raising phase versus when you Anubis. Their best answer to Anubis is Halugamon. End of turn, draw 2, add a Luga to hand, and then trash up to 3 cards to delete up to a level 6.
It deletes itself, right?
Yeah, it deletes itself, and then deletes your Anubis. The best part about that line is they get another raising phase with Analog Boy, which is critical because if they were just a turn too slow on their clock, you would eventually overwhelm them. But Gazimon, very hard counter into the deck. It's very brutal for the Lugamon.
A lot of the memory triggers are not optional.
Yeah.
So you lose them on the Gazi.
Right. So we win that 2-0, and I'm feeling all right at this point. I was really hoping for more mirrors, but that wasn't the case. And then our next round, we play against another unique deck that I wasn't really expecting people to consider. Round 5, we play against Vaccine Hybrids, which is...
with the Marcuses, right?
Yeah, it was the Marcus Vaccine Hybrids. He was playing a list which main goal was to turbo out Venusmon and kind of spin you under Venusmon the entire game. Game 1, it is a heater. It's a slugfest. We're going 30 minutes, and I'm slowly losing the resource battle game, and I eventually lose the game. And at that point, I don't know if Basil was next to me.
I was, in fact, next to you.
But game 2 comes. We're 20 minutes in the clock, and I looked at my opponent and said, I have to play really fast. Tell me to slow down if you want to, but I'm like, we have 20 minutes. So I play
for 2 games versus Vaccine Control.
So I play the fastest I've ever played because ties in the tournament are bad. You want your wins when you get them. Obviously tie if you can, but at that point, if the opponent just grinded out long enough in game 2, I would have lost by default.
It was going to be a loss or a win or a tie at best.
Right. So
let's send it.
Thank God. This is why you practice. My brother says one of the worst parts about tournaments is the practice. It's not actually the tournament itself. If you've practiced enough, you have nothing to worry about.
Yep.
You'll know every single line. And I basically played games without thinking because I've had so many games on it. And eventually we end up winning 2-1. That was one of the scariest games of the tournament because one of the things we were theorizing prior was timeouts are going to be scary because what if the players aren't good on their decks? What if they just take really long? Anubis takes really long. Like we said earlier, Anubis doesn't have to swing. So some of the games do end up being a grind fest where because you didn't swing on those turns to like checkmate them, there's an extra turn that now the opponent can start thinking about their cards. But we take it 2-1, and then round 6, we get a nice old Anubismon, and I'm the happiest person alive. It's so unremarkable in my head that when I was like going back and looking at my rounds, I was like, I don't know what my round 6 was. Oh, I'm pretty sure the person I played round 6 is going to say that I didn't play Anubis, but it was an Anubismon. We just win 2-0, like we said.
Very confident.
Very confident. He was playing a Soulmon list, and that list
the Soulmon tech for specifically Crimson Blaze and Ruin mode. I think it makes a lot of sense. We just didn't want to compromise the mirror, so we opted away from it. So we had more consistent memory gain than Soulmon variants.
So we end up winning that 2-0, and then the next player was Hunters, and so the player I was shouting out earlier, the one that I lost to in the pre-Nats warm-up, I'm very glad I played him because it basically taught me how to play the matchup. My opponent was really awesome. They were a very, very strong pilot. I think Hunters is probably one of the most complicated decks to pilot at a top level to get consistent results because they have so many lines.
A lot of hard choices.
A lot of hard choices, and a lot of the lines makes you have 2 cards in hand. And that is very, very common. And there's a lot of math that you have to do with Damemon in particular versus king moding one of the tamers you have in hand. There's a lot of math that you have to do of like, okay, what inherits do I need to save? When do I go into my level 5? The moment your level 5 pops, you are out of resources. That entire stack that you used.
Because level 5s don't say save.
They don't say save. And I played him. It was a game 3 heater, but I ended up putting him under Ruin mode 5 times, calling from darkness, layer out the attacks. And he was doing the best he could. He was saving his Drachmons, the green level 3 rookie from Hunters.
The one that spins back Tamers to draw.
Yeah, he says inherit plus 2k, and it makes all the level 4s live. But the biggest part that I'm very glad that I played, his Discord name is VPassion. I played him. Psychmon actually is very relevant in that matchup because you can no longer cross your level 3s.
You cross the Gumdramon and then give it rush with the superior or the Arrestadramon.
Right, and doing that to choke out Hunters eventually won me the game, as well as like choking him under Ruin mode. The biggest part of Ruin mode in that matchup is that you can't cross your rookies because the level 4 Arrestadramon says you need 2 sources in order to gain rush. So even if he had a rookie in raising and I had 2 security or 3 security left because of Watchmaker, I was never under the threat of dying, even though his inherits a jamming. And that was another thing that made him really good is his use of Clockmon was really, really smart. To live Ruin mode, to live checks under Ruin mode. For your first few checks, he had jamming and that kind of pressure. But we ended up taking it 2-1 there. And going into round 8, we play against a Lugamon deck. And I have to go back to one of the pods we did earlier where I ripped into that deck.
The EU Nats recap.
Yeah.
Because only one Lugamon top 16 and it was the most represented deck in the tournament.
And the player I played against, his name was Carl. Shout out to him if you're listening. Awesome player. Eventually ended up making top 8. So I can't even fault myself for losing to him because it's obviously a very strong player. But I didn't know some of the lines that he did. That was the best Lugamon player I've ever played against. I think he was an amazing pilot and an amazing deck builder. He played some amazing tech cards.
We'll talk about those in a sec.
And one of the things that me and you were talking about is the biggest difference in a player is not necessarily like how they play the cards. Because, me evolving Goblymon is the same as you evolving Goblymon. It's the same as another person evolving Goblymon, right? The difference at Nats, and we'll see it when we talk about cards of the week, is deck building. His deck was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I can't believe, I believe it now, obviously he did it, but he played 8 rookies, which is an insane, like in my mind.
For a guy like you, it's unplayable.
And he played 14, 15 rounds with 8 rookies. He was an amazing pilot, and I lost to him. I think I lost, no, it was game 3. I lost to him game 3. And eventually he made the run of his life in top 8. So can't even be mad about it. And
So now it's crunch time. We're X2.
Yeah, now it's crunch time, and our next match, we get the best thing we can hear.
A mirror.
Flip Sunomon. It's a mirror. Awesome. We've played the mirror several times, but this one was a game 3 heater. Like, I mean, I had a lot of game 3s, and I don't want to say that I had some bad variance going into the final rounds, but I didn't brick up until this point. My last 2 rounds was literally where I got every single one of my bricks. I think I bricked a total of 5 times where I just didn't see a rookie, or my turns
Didn't
were a
see
little,
boosts.
didn't see boost, didn't see blue mare, things like that. But it was all towards the very end. And one of those games, I didn't have a rookie and I had to play on the back foot. The back foot of the Anubismon is where all the skill comes in my opinion.
Agreed.
Fighting back for the board, fighting back for turns that you can like drown them with ruin mode, or fighting your Anubises is very hard because you are now under the floodgate. And if you don't have Leviamon, if you don't find ways to stop the floodgates from coming back, because Anubis, you kill them and then they spin back from Anubismon. But we eventually take it 2-1. And our last match of the event, or of day 1, was Melga. And this one was very scary. Melga, he bricked game 1, but almost won. He hard played a level 5, and I didn't have Anubis. I didn't have Merva. I couldn't kill it. Ends up going into his level 6, and he's slowly chipping away with X Antibody, but we barely find a Levy later on. Like, we find the Anubis, but at this point he's above level 5, so we can't kill his body. But we end up finding just an out. It's very scary because we didn't have Merva either, so we couldn't raid retell over his guy, and it was just a really weird game 1. Game 2, he goes stay and raising 3 turns in a row until he gets into level 5, and it's like, I hope you don't have...
A lot of damage coming my way.
I hope you don't have the line, because that will kill me. He didn't play a boost, he didn't play Cool Boy, he didn't play anything, and I'm like, I'm dead! And game 3... it comes down to the wire.
Super grind.
It's a super grind, and at this point, because of the event had a little bit of problems at the start, everyone's out of the venue.
Everyone's dead,
and there's there's 2 judges just breathing over us, and it's the final turn, and I eventually get into a board where I have barely enough memory where I can play an ignite, and I've Merva crossed into a Saberdramon and another Ignitemon. Opponent has a rookie in the back. He's already into Omni X. I have no security left. His Omni X triggers has the inherit from the Wereguru to delete the level 4. I have to block with one of the Ignitemons. I have to block his rookie with the Ignitemons, and I have to block his last check with the Merva, and he's out of resources, and we win that game barely. We're on 0 security, and we take it.
Day 2, baby.
That's day 2, and going into day 2 was a fun one because you kind of get to hear the murmurs of decks that are like in top cut.
Oh, a Darkness Bagramon players in top 64.
So it's you can imagine it's like 1 a.m. I'm at our Airbnb, and I'm like, what is Darkness Bagramon? What does this card even do? There's 2 Machinedramon players. I'm like, okay, I've played Machinedramon enough. What does Bancho Leomon do?
Yeah, heavy Leo,
heavy
baby.
Leo. What does this Lalamon do? Why do they play a vanilla level 3?
Yeah.
And I'm just so perplexed. And I'm like, I just hope I don't see these tomorrow, I guess. Or maybe I do. I don't know if the matchup's good.
Yeah.
Because we haven't
I don't
practiced.
have Darkness Bagra built. I don't know. I don't have it.
This obscure secret that was terrible. So like no one built it. And I want to take a small tangent. That was one of my favorite parts about Nats is the deck builders and
Very
the players.
creative.
We're very, very creative. I was saying it earlier, the biggest difference is deck building, and these guys were no joke. Some of the best deck builders in the country. I mean,
Yep, it shows.
it's very hard to make top 64 on a bad list. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Anyways, we start day 2 off, and
You got another one time.
yeah, we got another one time because the opponent flips a Bukamon, and the Mirage matchup for Anubis is very, very, okay, I wouldn't say easy, but the lines are very obvious, and the end result is you're going to say to your opponent, cards in hand,
4.
2,
Sorry.
half your decks doesn't function anymore.
Yeah.
And we end up taking it 2-0 there, and the end of the road was a deck that I didn't even see coming.
Deck profile coming to the channel soon, by the way.
What an awesome deck. His name was Connor. He's a super good, cool dude. And one of the nice things, because this was my first in-person regional, is when you're kind of trailing in the top tables, like your X and 1, X and 2, or X and 0, you see the same people.
Yeah.
It's just half of them are gone, half of them are still here. And one of the things I really liked was, just joking and talking with the players, because all of them were awesome. They were super, super nice. And there was this person that was next to me, like two seats down. And I would say, stop following me. I hope we don't see each other. I'll see you in day 2. And we'd make jokes like that throughout the entire event. And I sit down. He looks at me and he says, we finally see each other. And then we go into the game. And I actually haven't seen what he was playing. I was too engrossed with
your own matches.
Yeah, in my own matches, just talking to the players and just focusing on what to do. So he flips his egg. It's BT6 Sunomon. I'm like, oh,
the mirror.
It's
Anubis.
It's Anubis. Then he plays and evolves into Garurumon. Beelstar. Or maybe a weird Were-Guru Melgalith with BT6 Suno. I kind of get it. You don't want to deck yourself. Yeah, you don't want to deck yourself out. The BT6 eggs is once per turn, so you don't need to continuously draw from the starter deck egg. And then he goes into his line. And I'm like, okay, it's Beelstar. I just got a layer. I just got a chip.
Yep.
I've practiced this matchup at least 100 times. And then he goes into Were-Guru X, draws 2 and pitches. Guru X. Yeah,
the banned
Draw
one.
2, pitches 2. He pitches Belphemon Sleep Mode. And at this point, I'm completely blown away because
what is going on?
not only what is this guy playing? This guy is top 32 with a Belphemon top end with Garurumon. So in my head, alarm bells are flaring.
Yes.
I've
What?
never seen anything like this.
Right.
So now I'm trying to. I said my game 1, I was in an okay position. I had boost, I had the line. I can go into Anubis. I'm like, okay, it's fine. So I go into my first Anubis line. His Garurumon lives his checks because of the protection. And that was another thing that he did. He swung with it. So I'm like, he not only raised, he swung with it.
So definitely Beelstar.
So Beelstar, maybe. Okay. But Belphemon, I'm just like scratching my head. What could this possibly be? So I raise my first stack in order to deal with it. I go into Anubis. And this is a bad Anubis where I'm only pitching a Floodgate, play the Floodgate, kill his level 4. Okay. Pass. And then he says to me 2 words that are the worst thing I could ever hear. Biting Crush, pitching Levy, kill your Anubis.
Uh-oh.
And the alarm bells in my head are a lot more real.
Guys, it's Belphemon Leviamon.
And I described Biting Crush earlier. As long as you pitch a great Demon Lord,
You can pitch Rage Mode.
You can pitch Rage Mode. So at this point, I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
The matchups where they have Biting Crush look a lot different.
Yes.
Every time I saw Anubis in my hand, this card's getting discarded.
Yep.
This is never being played.
Because we played Leviamon in our list. So
Yeah.
now the win condition is Leviamon into Ruin Mode.
Leviamon, Room Mode, swing 2 checks, and whatnot. But at this point, I'm still lost. I'm like, okay, it's a hard counter Anubis, right? How does he get game? Does he deck me out? Is he trying to stall me?
Yeah. Because we've seen Creepymon variants.
Yeah, we've seen Creepymon variants. And the reason why I'm going so much of a tangent on this is because the thought process for if you've played this game a lot, when you've played a lot of decks and you don't know what the deck does, your game 1 is no longer just try to win. Obviously, I'm going to play my best to my outs, but it's figure out what the heck I'm playing against.
Yeah, see every card in your opponent's list.
And it's nice because he's on the Garurumon engine and he pitches a lot of cards. Game 1 goes to deck out. I have less cards than him because Garurumon protection, the way it works.
Yeah, you bottom deck 2 cards.
Bottom deck 2 cards. Not only that, I got to see some very interesting cards in his deck. He's playing 4 Biting Crush, 4 Leviamon, and
then 3 of each Belphemon.
The game gets a lot harder from here. I was like, okay, what are his techs to win the game? He showed one of them. Biel's Blast Mode. 20 in trash, unsuspend, gain 3.
It unsuspends anyway. It's 4 to Evo. If you have 20 in trash, gain 3.
Gain 3. And here's another thing. The Belphemon Rage Mode, that security attack goes into the Blast Mode. It's persistent. And suddenly, I'm not just dealing with the deck that's a grind game. I'm not just dealing with the deck that could possibly take me to deck out because it stalls for so long. I'm dealing with a really aggressive deck that is playing the hardest counter to my deck. And eventually we go into game 2. We're at 10 cards left, and he finds game with the same aforementioned blast mode. Sleep mode stalls long enough. Biting crushes can come out of security. I can't play anything by effects. A lot of the times, in order to not die or in order to slow him down, I had to say cross with Merva for 8, no effect, because he had 4 biting crushes on the board. But that was the end of my run.
Top 32. Amazing performance.
Yeah, shout outs to that guy. We were both, he was really, really friendly. And that's probably my favorite part about Nats is playing this game in front of another person is the way to play this game at a competitive event.
Very nice.
So,
well,
there we
Justin,
go.
I would ask you what you would change about your list, but it's a perfect segue into our cards of the week because I know exactly what you're going to say.
My card of the week, and this is Carl played that. The Lugamon played this card. It would have helped me in a lot of games because the 2 games that were lost are important. It's Blacktailmon Uber
From the RB1 set.
from the RB1 set. It says on play, spin a card from your opponent's trash to the bottom of their deck to draw a card. Why is this important?
It also plays out of security.
It also plays out of security. That's right. That part less so relevant.
That's why, I'm sorry for interrupting you. That's why I initially dismissed this card because it's a security Digimon. These cards suck.
They never do
Let's
anything.
move on.
Let's move on. But it's a purple level 4.
Dark Animal.
Dark Animal. So the reason why I was so blown away by some of the deck building, Carl was in one of the examples, the top 8 Luga player. He played 2 of these, and I asked him, why do you play this card? He says, I wish I heard this 3 weeks ago. Lugamon cannot play under Biting Crush because
Yes.
on the Fenrir turn, your Fenrir gets eaten, your things
Game
get
over.
eaten, and your game is over because the turn is now passed. However, if you resolve all of your effects first before opponents delay or
Before
all-
Biting Crush activates.
before Biting Crush activates. So his line was play Blacktailmon Uber from Fenrir, not the Solar, because you can't play under Biting Crush, and it is a Yume. Spin the Leviamon to the bottom of their deck before Biting Crush resolves, because there's no longer a Leviamon in trash.
Yep.
And that was the biggest difference between my list and the list that topped. Is he
And,
played?
and the Anubis list that ended up winning the tournament played one as well.
Yeah. So that was the answer to all my problems, because if I just looked a little bit longer, I would have seen that, hey, the Levia Biting Crush matchup sucks.
Yes.
It's really, really terrible.
Horrible. Putrid.
But if I just played 2 Blacktailmon Uvers, the 2 games that were really lost, those 2 being
In the preliminary rounds.
in the preliminary rounds and then the one in future rounds, I might have had a better shot. And that was one of the only cards I didn't want to see. I didn't want to see anyone playing it, and I ended up playing it in the top tables, and that was my downfall. So that's what I would change about the list. I'd probably take out the biggest differentiator of our list versus others was I played 3 Nidhogs. The memory gain was fantastic. It helped make some turns better, but I could have played Blacktailmon Uber, and I think that would have made the biggest difference. And I'm not even joking about it.
On that note, my card of the week for our Anubis list was Nidhogg. Nidhogg was crucially important in racing Anubismon players to Anubismon. A lot of the times we'll have a rookie in the back and a training, and they're like, well, you can't go into can't go into Anubis this turn. Training into Gobbly, you're at 1. You go into the Blue Mara. One of your pitches is Nidhogg. It keeps the turn.
Yeah, and that came up in the Mirage matchup. My board state is Ignitemon, so it's not the Goblin Inherit, and I have Training Boost, but he has Syakumon, chokes me to 1.
Yep.
If I go into Goblimon, or I pop the boost, go into Goblymon, I'm at 1. If I were to go into Blue Mara here, I would pass the turn at 1 because the Ignitemon doesn't have the pitch. When you pitch, gain a memory.
Yep.
But I had an Nidhogg in hand, killed this Floodgate, pitched all my cards, played a Floodgate. I have 2 in hand, and that only happened because I had Nidhogg. So
Nidhogg was the difference maker. Well, Justin, overall impressions of the event?
it was really good. People were a little harsh on the 2-round buy thing. There was like a 200-man line. But
There was a bit of a delay in between round 2 and 3.
all I gotta say is the rest of the event ran smoothly. There was no big problems outside of like that small 1-hour wait
And the One Piece.
and the one piece. We don't talk about
yeah,
that
we
game.
played Digimon.
I'm so sorry. Your grand finals was hyped though.
Facts.
Did take you 15 rounds to get there. I'm sorry about that. But the event was awesome. I didn't get to play in any side events, which I'm little.
Yeah, it's bittersweet, right?
Yeah, it's
because
bittersweet.
the reason you weren't is you were at top table.
So can I even be mad about
Good
that?
a reason as any.
Yeah, good of a reason as any.
Well, thank you so much, Justin. An amazing performance. And thank you all for watching for now. We're going to move to our next interview, so stay tuned. All right, everyone. Last but not least, Ryan, welcome back to the pod.
Hey.
Very nice. Our last performer, our highest placing performer, outplacing Justin by, I think, 3 placings. Justin's flipping me off, and that's all right.
That's fair.
That's fair. Ryan, how are you feeling?
Great. Thank you.
How are you feeling? Actually, sleepy.
Oh, yeah. No sleep since getting back yet. So
For those of you who don't know, the Digimon channel does not quite pay the bills, so a lot of us went to work Tuesday and today. Some of us didn't, and they're laughing right now. But you made it to Nationals. Again, you are another player that had a 2-round bye. And you're going to be playing what a lot of people would not really expect if they're fans of the channel, but everyone locally knew exactly what you were going to play.
Oh, yeah.
So let us know.
Playing security control. So this is my 3rd year playing Nationals. Every year I've played security and control. It is the deck I'm most comfortable with. Even when it's not good into the meta, I will be playing it and still doing well, as you all know.
That's right. You were playing security control specifically in the Dark Ages, notably BT11 Black War Greymon format.
Yep.
Hades Force is a hell of a card. Greymon X is a hell of a card. But a lot of the fans of the channel know you as either the Shine Greymon guy or the Gigimon guy, depending on your perspective. So was there ever a consideration for something not security control?
So I was considering Shine.
Because that's what you got your invite with.
Yes, it is. I got off the deck because I don't know. I feel like the deck hates me because it is so inconsistent for me. There will be like the day I played in regionals, the deck was running hot, but the 3-4 locals I did after that, it's like, oh, hey, you're dropping Rise
for 8.
That's your best play. I also wanted to play Beelstar, which is actually what I was going to play, but I only have 3 Sunomons from BT6, thanks to Nito over here.
Ryan, in between rounds at the local, we were playing Beelstar, and he's like, I have 3 eggs because Nito only brought me 3. So great.
Oh, he didn't bring me any. I got them from someone else.
Oh, okay. Even worse. So, but security control. So, obviously, that's a deck you've been playing forever. What drew you to that in the first place?
So when I first started playing the game, I started with OG Ulforce, which if you play new Ulforce, it's a different deck.
Very different.
It is a different deck.
Jesse's laughing in the corner right now.
I enjoyed it, and then I moved to Shine Gray, BT4 Shine Gray, which I absolutely love that deck. So I played Magic before this, and I played Blue-White Control, and Shine Gray was very close to that. And then I was looking through some lists, and I saw this weird mishmash of megas and removal options, and I'm like, all right, this is the deck. I want to play this, and I've been playing security control since then.
That's right. A lot of you don't know, but at the locals, I call myself the security control slayer because just about every week when I first learned the game, it was versus you, and a lot of beatings at the hand of Ryan piloting security control. But I'm really happy that you ended up playing security control because you are a security control player unlike any other. And I want to talk about, didn't want to talk about Justin and Jacob's lists specifically because they look very similar to a lot of other lists. There were not a lot of people playing some of the cards that were in your security control list.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to talk about those a little bit right now. So the first is Dad.
Yep.
So tell us about Dad, Ryan.
So Hakuto, in case anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, I have been playing this tamer since RBO1. Essentially, this deck, if you're playing a very tamer focus, if your opponent's playing a very tamer focused deck, such as Crossheart or Hunters, you just lose. You play Dad, he's going to gain you extra memory start a turn, as well as his other effect where your opponent plays a level 3, you draw a card, or 4 or higher, you gain a memory. so suddenly Blue Flare went from the worst matchup to, oh, hey, I can't lose.
Mm-hmm. They'll never have the turn for them.
It's also not a card that I see anyone playing ever at all. Everyone's playing Digimon Emperor. I don't know why. That card it's bad.
A lot of people at the local have affectionately referred to your deck as tax control because a lot of people understand security control in the context of they're going to play Magna Anja for 7, they're going to play a kill spell for 8, and I'm going to use all of that memory as a resource to try and beat it. Whereas your list is a lot of the times going to give them 1 or 2 or 3 just by playing a couple of tamers, a couple of these cheap tamers. We'll get a little bit more into that a little bit later on, but let's get into the tournament itself. Yeah. So you had a 2-round bye.
Yes.
You got 4th at a regional with the aforementioned Shine Gray. Deck list is on the channel already. So going into round 3, what ended up happening?
So round 3 was Beelstar, which I didn't do much testing for the event. I did maybe 5 matches. Beelstar is something that it was a very easy match back in the day. Mm-hmm. Playing here, I was semi-afraid because I'm like, oh, the Guru engine can really pop off. And game 1, the guy popped off and he just couldn't finish. Essentially, I got 3 Hakutos out. He plays Beelstar for 0. It costs 3.
Yep.
Turns over. I wipe his board. And that's how the first game went. The second game, I'm like, okay, I know how to play this now. So I just dropped Hakutos and Keenan started the game. And he, at midway through the second game, he's like, I can't even play this game. Like, I can't do anything.
Your list is if you have never played against a list like this, we'll have the deck list, like I said, is on the Pro Play Games spreadsheet. Give it a try. It is a very, very awkward list to play against. So Beelstar ended up going 2-0. And then... Everyone brought a piece of paper or a notes app on their phone.
Little list.
If you haven't played, for the fans, if you haven't played in a 10 or 8 or 9 round tournament, give it a try and then see if you can recite your rounds back without thinking about it. Because it is hard. Yeah. It's a lot of rounds. So take it away, Ryan.
So the following round was against Shine, which... Shine is it's a pretty close match. Like a lot of people will say it's bad because burst mode, just trash security. But it's like, okay, usually the decks play 1 or 2 burst mode. The deck's not exactly the most consistent, so they have to have it. Also, if you talk their Geogray, all of a sudden their Marcuses aren't going to do anything the next turn. My opponent was on Shine. He played very well. He saw all his lines. He 2-0'd me pretty easily. So that was a little disheartening to me. The next round, though, we played Anubis. And
that's what you said. You said if I see Anubis 10 rounds in a row, I'll be fine.
Yeah, this was the first round where I got to play X Program, which my opponent had no idea what the card is. He has 5-6 Digimon on board. I play X Program.
They all die.
My opponent looks at it. He's like, "What's this do?" And I'm like, all your board, 2 trash.
Yeah.
That was a pretty easy 2-0. Oh God, what did I play next? Another Anubis. I played a lot of Anubis, unlike everyone else.
Yeah.
The next Anubis was 2-0 or 2-1. I can't remember. I played a lot of Anubis. Most of them were 2-0. Some of them were 2-1. It's hard to recite them all. X Program and the Hakutos kind of destroyed those matchups as well as Keenan. One of the funny things about Keenan is on play, your opponent either trashes an option or a tamer, or you gain 1, draw 1. A lot of times the Anubis player, I would play that turn 1, they would trash either the training or the purple memory boost, that's what I want to do.
Yes.
They're now choking themselves and they're starving
losing
themselves resources later in the game.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, one of the biggest strategies versus security control is build up your either delay options or tamers or whatever resources you can, and then save it for a big turn. So part of the strength of the Keenan, especially out of security, is you really want those boosts and trainings. But for example, if you swing and you're at 0 and hit a Keenan, you're really tempted to pitch that purple memory boost, or even like Calling from Darkness. But if you pitch either of those, your game is really hard from there. So a tactical error on their end, perhaps.
Yep. My next opponent, I believe his name was David. He was on Basilmon, which that is not something I expected to see.
Yes, neither were we.
Basilmon is a funny matchup because it's very even. It's either I die very fast or my opponent dies very fast. They either get removed or they.
Oh yeah, a lot of their mill effects are not optional.
So game 1, he pretty handily destroys me. Game 2 is very close, but he decks himself too fast, isn't able to close it out. Game 3, I ended up losing to a card in my deck. I had a Shadow Serafi out, so my opponent did probably the coolest play against me anyone's ever done, where he went to Beelza X 3 times in one turn to trash 8 security and then swing for game.
Oh man, what a dog!
So at this point, I am X and 2. We are going into round 8. I have to win 3 rounds in a row to possibly day 2. So I'm like, all right, cool.
Lock in.
I play an Anubis player, and I'm like, all right, dope.
Perfect start.
This one, I believe this was one of the 2-0s. I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, a lot of Anubis.
Yes. Yes.
All of those matches, minus the last one, very, very blended. So I get this one. The next round is Anubis as well. This player, I actually saw earlier when I was playing Basilmon. He was the table over, and he's like, I really don't want to play against you. And then we sit down. He's across from me. He's like, oh, no. And I'm like, oh, sorry. We're playing. He was a very, very cool guy. I wish I remembered his name. I talked to him a few times after the event. But he was playing a really cool tech in Anubis that I didn't see, which was the New Skull Greymon. I had no idea what that did. I don't remember what it did even.
It pops 2 5Ks and then deletes itself and spits out a rookie.
It was the Inherit that did something that mattered.
The Inherit spits out a rookie on deletion as well.
Yeah, that ended up that killed me one of the games, but I ended up getting that match 2-1. And the next match, as the other 2 people on the channel, was Melga. Round 10 Melga. That's
like clockwork.
Yeah. This is a match that it very depends on my security. And right before going into this event, the night before, I'm actually like, you know what? We're going to make some last second changes in case I play Melga, because that was the one deck I tested against, really. And every match I played, it's like, oh, you don't have enough removal and security, or, oh, hey, your Keenans do nothing against this deck. Your Hakutos do nothing against this deck. So I ended up sideboarding a few cards out and putting in 1 Azulong Ace and 2 Schwartz Lerzats.
Yes.
This match was, I did go 2-0, but it was a very, very scary match.
Yeah.
So game 1, I believe it was my opponent's 3rd stack where he went into the Omni X, and I'm like, crap. Luckily, I had the Chaos in my hand. I got rid of it, put it in the security. He decked himself too fast because he's purple Melga. That deck goes through its deck way too fast. Game 2, he saw the Omni X on the 1st stack, and I'm scared.
Yeah.
He flips over my security, 2 Chaos Dag, Lonke, Autostaco, Wyvern's Breath, and Harrismon.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
So
playable, I think.
We're both kind of like googly eyes at my security, like, holy crap.
Yeah.
So he trashes the Chaos Egg, and he's like, okay, I gotta hit the Wyvern's Breath with the Harrismon. He hits the Wyvern's Breath, so I'm like, all right, that sucks. I Chaos Egg it, I tuck it, bottom of security, so my opponent cannot see it the rest of the game. The match was very close. I think both games he got me down to 0 or 1 security, just could not close out. Like that Omni X early was scary, but seeing the rest of my security, I was like, all right, like, I don't have to put faith into blindness here.
Yeah, you know what's coming.
I know what's in here. I can kind of play around with that and just delete anything on board. My opponent also kind of bricked this game there. He was dropping 5s pretty much right after that. And I'm just like, I will give you maximum memory to delete everything. Because if you're hard playing 5s, that is a good sign for me.
Yeah. Well, so excellent, and that takes you to day 2 at X and 2. So all of the people you saw here went X and 2 going into day 2, and then tell us about day 2, the energy in the room.
Day 2, everyone was excited to be there. There was, I did notice 2 people, I believe, got DQ'd because they were playing with lists other than what they submitted. So there was
There's a little tension in the air.
62 people. 2 players got round 1 buys essentially. I did not. My first round was against Anubis. I can't remember my opponent's name. He was a great person. We were just chit chatting while playing. I enjoyed it.
For those of you who don't know, at day 2 of this tournament, it's not your standard 45-minute round. It was longer. So a lot of these matches were going long, but could still finish because of the elongated timer.
Yes. Yeah, so round 1 was against Anubis, and my opponent did know what I was playing. I think a lot of people knew what I was playing. I was up in higher tables, like floating around, and I was always towards the end of the table. The amount of times I would play an X record and hear people go, "Oh my god," standing around me day 1.
X program, baby.
So day 2, my opponent knew what I was on. I was the lower seed, so he had me go first, thinking I was going to do that turn 1 Magna Ancient, but the turn 1 Hakuto choking your opponent is pretty good.
It's very strong.
I can't remember how many games we played. The
good news is I remember because I was watching this. You were at the end table so we could watch. And let me tell you, he goes, can I see that? He picks up Hokuto. He goes, oh, and then sets it back. It was a long 2-0 for you, Ryan.
Yeah, that's right. But like I said, my opponent was a great guy. Loved playing with him. Loved chatting with him. We sat there and chat for probably 2-3 minutes after playing. Going into the next round, this is where I get my feature match. So on stream.
On stream, baby.
Anyone who has seen me on stream knows that I have never won a game on stream. In the Shine Gray regional, actually, I got put on stream, and both games. Well, first game I got to play. Second game was hard play Rise Grey on turn 1. So
yep. That's tough.
Pretty great. These games were a lot closer. So game 1, opponent's on Anubis. Game 1 is trying to do everything he can to get through me. Kind of seeing what my deck is. Unable to get through, so I get game 1. Game 2, I thought I was ahead. And then at one point, my opponent's like, "How many cards are left in your deck?" So we do a deck count, and not often does it happen to where I'm decking out before Anubis. This game, I was drawing a lot of cards off my Tokamon eggs, so I actually ended up decking myself out before. Game three, I think, was kind of unlucky for me. I was missing a lot of things I needed, but honestly, my opponent was an awesome person. Like, if I was going to lose to someone, I'm glad it was a great person. I enjoyed playing with him. He knew how to play the matchup. He said he plays security control. He said he loved how I was playing. He piloted Anubis great. So yeah, that was where it ended for me.
Well, if there was anything you could change about your deck list going into the tournament, what would you have changed?
I think I like my list exactly where it was.
I do too.
I believe the games I lost, you can't have a perfect run. I think that last match I probably could have won if I played different in game 2. My issue was just assuming the Anubis player was decking out faster without actually checking, which I should have been. But as everyone in this room knows, I was a little tired due to the night before.
Yeah. For no reason in particular.
Yeah, no reason at all. Definitely.
So I'm glad you're happy with that. I know at the previous year Nationals, you were pretty upset given the Omni Zawart Blue Flare fiasco. So I'm happy that didn't backfire again. But Ryan, the people want to know, what is your card of the week?
So we got to go with 2. Hakuto, as he was one half of the MVP of this deck. So many people didn't know what this card did. So many people know what it does now. I'm hoping to see more people play this card, honestly, because he is so good.
It has tons of potential.
2 memory, and every single game I played the card, I gained that memory plus a bunch back
more,
over time. And number 2 has got to be X program. Like I said, there were so many times people were walking by, see me play X program, wiping 5 to 6 cards off Anubis.
All of them?
There was, I will shout out the opponent who beat me as well. He knew I was playing X program, so he would bring out the Dober X, which no one else did. I would X program people, they would still leave it in there.
Yep. Well, I obviously get another card of the week, and I want to shout out the Security Harrismon. We obviously got the security rookies a little bit late, but I think a lot of people stick to defaulting to that on deletion Salamon, which I think is still fine and well. But specifically, the reason for the Harrismon, at least you were telling me, was a little bit of a better shot into the red hybrids, which we all know red hybrids is a super strong counter to security control. That Aldemon turning off security options. But that Harrismon just slowing them down, making it so that something can't chip you away any faster is very strong. Well, everyone, thank you so much. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Jacob. Amazing performance from all of you. I'm so happy and so proud. Just know that anytime there's a Wayward City Games local, there's 3 national finalists in the room. And so thank you so much, all. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. All 3 of these guys will be checking the comments and responding. And until next time, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.
We gonna